Quite a few people ask me how I go about programming drums like that's supposed to sound real drums. Well, first of all, you gotta have a great knowledge of what a drummer will do, how he's able to play the drums. I'm a drummer myself. I used to play drums, so it's a little easier for me. So if you ever sat behind a drum set and played a groove, you have a little knowledge what a drummer actually does and what he is capable of. And to talk to a lot of drummers and listen to a lot of drummers really helps if you don't play drums yourself. And analyze what they do. Common mistakes people make when they program drums, they should sound like real drums. They program some complicated stuff a drummer wouldn't even be able to play. You shouldn't underestimate the fact that the way we listen to music, and we're used to listen to an instrument the way it's played, our brain still learns how an instrument would sound even without knowing it really. We tend to have a silent knowledge on how things sound. So if you program stuff that's ridiculously complicated and a drummer wouldn't be able to play it, he would need 10 hands to do it, the brain will tell you something's wrong here. So make sure you program it in a fashion that the listener feels comfortable within the situation and feels, okay, this sounds believable. So the listener doesn't even question, is this real or is this not real? This doesn't sound real. Regarding my process, I kind of try to go with the flow, whatever the song dictates. If I wrote the song, I have a pretty clear picture on how I would like the drums to sound. And if I'm working on a song I didn't write, but maybe have a demo or something, and I know there's not going to be a real drummer involved, so it's all programmed. Sometimes it's a question of budget. Actually often is. And sometimes it's a question of style and whatever the song needs for that specific landscape of music. So usually there's an outlining of the song with all the sections of the music. There is a verse, there's a pre-chorus, there's a chorus, a post-chorus, there's a bridge. And, I would start programming kick and snare, for instance, and play the entire sections of the songs, all the sections through. And then I would overdub the hi-hat on a different MIDI track, then toms and cymbals. I rarely play kick, snare, and hi-hat simultaneously on the keyboard. I usually do kick and snare and then play hi-hat as an overdub. Especially with the nuances of the hi-hat, which is a very important part for a believable performance in the drums. It's easier for me to play it with two hands and, whatever the part requires. Instead of having, all the fingers involved to play the entire drum part, which is kind of a hassle. But there's a lot of people who can do it really great. They're amazing with this. They're like drummers. I'm just not one of them. Super important is to put dynamics in. A drummer has, by its nature, it's a human being playing an instrument. As far as quantization, MIDI timing correction, I almost always quantize kick, snare, and hats, because I think that's the quarterback of the whole thing, and that has to be really tight. What I almost never quantize is toms and cymbals. And that's actually a good method to play with the variables going from one section of the song into the next section. Maybe having a tom fill slightly rushed into the next section or being programmed slightly laid back. So the perception of the following downbeat for the chorus, for instance, even it was quantized, the hi-hat and the snare, feels a little, later or earlier, depending on the tom fill you've programmed and the cymbal crash. These little programming tricks, so to speak, really help to make a drum part come alive. And besides the drum, the bass part is such an intricate part of a song. So I usually, if I play the bass myself, which I often do, is I rarely quantize. If ever possible, don't quantize the bass. Unless it's like a really stiff, like sequenced pattern, that's a different story. But if it's like it's supposed to be on the electric bass, played to an acoustic drums, so I try to never quantize it and play it until it feels right. And maybe quantize a note here and there if it's, if the part was generally great, but I have to kind of fix something. But I leave it unquantized. It just feels better for the song. It's very important to think about it as a live performance, sort of. Like almost playing it to tape, live to tape. So another thing, let me get some coffee. About libraries, sound libraries. There's actually 3 libraries I mainly use for programming drums. There's Easy Drummer, I think it's Easy Drummer 3 by now. And I've actually purchased a lot of their expansion packs. And they're really amazing. I mean, they sound so great. So Easy Drummer 3, then I use Slate drums. I think it's version 5.5 now. I've also acquired some of the additional libraries they offer. I think Blackbird Studios in Nashville offer a great library, Chris Lord-Elgee, and some other stuff. And also the stock library that comes with Slate digital drums, SDS drums, is amazing. You can go a long way with that. It's more towards the rock genre, but it's really great. I mean, I love the toms. They have a lot of great toms. And then the third plugin instrument I use a lot is all the stuff from Drumforge. They have like 4 or 5 really, really great drum kits with different, variations of kits and drums. Great toms as well. Not so much in the cymbal department. Great kicks and snares and toms. So it's actually not unusual that I use all 3 plugins to put one drum track together. I may use the toms from the Slate drums, and I use the hi-hat from Easy Drummer, and I use the cymbals from Easy Drummer because they sound really amazing. And then kick and snare I may use from Drumforge. It really depends on what the track requires, and there's no really a rule. It can be really time consuming, not the programming part, but to find the right sounds. It's like going into the recording studio and record a drummer, going in with a bunch of drums, putting some mics up, and you see what fits perfect to the track. And it's the same with plugins. I'd like to mix the flavors, whatever works for the track. After I've programmed the entire drums and I'm happy the way it feels, the way it sounds, I would go and bounce every individual track as if it would be a real drums recorded in the studio, so I can treat it like that within the mixing stage of the song. So it's not unusual during the mixing stage, even though I've made a decision on all the sounds, but when the guitar parts and everything is in there, I would still use Slate Trigger to treat it like a real drum kit and maybe supplement kicks and snares and toms, and to make it sound even better, whatever that means, but just perfect for the track. So that's basically the method I program drums. Even though it's programming and it's kind of a step-by-step process, I still look at it as an act of performance, sort of. And as if I would play drums in the studio, it would be kind of the same thing. So yeah, that's how I go about it, and I hope it helped.